Hello friends and welcome to my channel. In the last video, I made a skirt for my Victorian mourning costume. Now it is time to tackle the bodice. The form-fitting bodice is constructed from a whopping total of 12 pieces, and that doesn't even include the collar sleeves or the lining. There are 2 front pieces, 2 side pieces and 2 back pieces. The hemline comes to a point at the center back and front. The 2-piece sleeves have a modest puff and there is a rounded slit at the cuff. I started with the mock-up. There were some adjustments to be made. You can see the loose fabric around my neck. That's because there isn't enough room for my shoulders. They push the whole bodice upward. There was also a bit extra at the sides and a bit too much flare to the hem that I needed to fix. I'll save you from the cutting montage. I start working from the back as here the construction is fairly simple. I have already cut both the wool and the lining fabric and pasted the back and side pieces together. Let's sew these pieces together. The fronts need a bit different treatment as they will have some inner structure. So we'll first sew the 2 front pieces together without the lining. And of course, we'll need to sew the same seam from the lining. I had done enough felling with my skirt, so I decided to use another period seam finishing and whip the seams for the bodice. This is much faster. Now we can pin the bodice lining to the fronts. I'm aligning the seams carefully. I will now draw the position of the front dart on. According to the instruction, the bodice is interlined with hair canvas from the center front to the dart. Well, why there is then this dart at my canvas pattern? That's because there is a secret dart included in the seam between 2 front pieces. It's just hidden in the seam. Without the dart, the canvas wouldn't fit. We don't want to add any bulk by sewing the dart the regular way here. Instead, I will use the scraps of the lining to cut 2 strips. I will now pin the strips to the edges of the dart. Now I will sew the canvas edges to the strip of fabric and close the dart by joining the edges together. Now I'm stitching a line just inside the dart on the bodice to keep the fabrics together. Then I can sew the darts. Now I can pull the lining to the side and attach the canvas. I pin the canvas on and baste it. Then I cross-stitch the canvas on around the edges. Then I can sew the side seams and the shoulder seams. I folded the edges of the front to the inside at the center front line and then do the same for the lining.
Here is the bodice. And the reason why this is so full of weird fluff is that I was experimenting with cotton filling, because this is a little bit empty up here. I can try pinning this on and seeing how it looks like. If you look at it, this one is quite empty, and this one actually looks quite nice. So I'm going to cut padding pieces shaped like this, like a teardrop or something, like a kidney, and add those to both sides in order for this bodice to fit me a little bit better. Otherwise, it's actually pretty good.
I cut approximate shapes out of cotton wadding. I can shape them further to prevent any thick edges from showing. Then I'll baste the layers together loosely. I can now slide the padding in. At this point, I decided to attach the hook and eye tape to make it easier for me to try the bodice on. It's easiest to sew the hook and loop tape on by hand. I have now sewed a piece of padding in place. Now let's sew the other one together. Now that the bodice is looking pretty good, it's time for the color. I know this very nice couture technique to make a nice waistband, and I figured this would work perfectly for the stand-up color. I first need to cut the color in silk organza. I also cut the color from hair canvas in bias. In order to have the same grain line in both sides of the color, I needed to cut the canvas in two pieces. Now I can sew the canvas onto the silk organza. Now we can sew this interlining we just made to the outer color. I'll stay within the seam allowance to keep this stitching line from showing later. Oh, and if and when you are doing this, remember that the color has curvature. I had to do some fixing here. At this point, I decided to finish the lower edge of the bodice. I cut a long bias strip and finished the hem with that. Here I'm finally cutting out the sleeves. And yes, I had enough fabric for this, so I didn't use the other wool fabric piece that I had just in case. Now, you know how much I love recycling. I have this red and black lined silk scarf. I decided that the black silk would make a perfect lining for both the sleeves and the collar. I have pressed the upper seam allowance of my collar in. I lay it under the silk to cut the lining for the collar. At this point, I took in the sides a bit to improve the fit. I notched the neckline seam allowance to allow the collar to sit right. Then I can sew the collar on. Before sewing on the lining, I'm attaching the notched seam allowance to the hair canvas on the collar. Now is my favorite part, attaching the lining. All the ugly raw edges get hidden and you get a neat finish. Now we can sew the sleeve pieces together. You can see how clever the cut on the sleeve is. This curvature makes the sleeves that are very comfortable. I'll finish the cuffs by hand for neat finish. Now we can gather the tops of the sleeves with 2 rows of gathering stitches. Quite often the Victorians opted for hand sewing the sleeves in place. I too decided to forego the machine and use a needle and thread method. The puffed sleeves won't puff without some support, so I'll need more of that cotton wadding. The wadding is pretty thick, but it splits very nicely in 2 layers like this. If you want to see how this is done in more detail, check out my video on a Victorian-inspired tailored jacket. Now we get to the fun part. Let's add the looped soutache. Now it really starts to look like a proper Victorian bodice. As the front has the hook and eye closure, it needed a modesty panel to keep my white underwear from peeking out. I added the blue chambray as an interlining for extra support.
Okay, here is the jacket now. I have the placket or modesty panel, whatever you want to call this, just pinned on, and it fits really nicely. The only thing is that I seem to have so much space here. It's like I could wear this with a full bustle gown and it's way too much. So even though I already saw this beautiful soutache on, I think I have to take in about here a bit. But I think I don't have to take the soutache off altogether. I may just have to have a break in it, but then it will fit much nicer. Then I need to have the waist stay, and I don't know whether I should have boning or not. It's actually sitting quite well without boning, and I know that during this time the boning was sort of optional, at least in Finland. But it doesn't really matter that much because I have a corset on anyway, so I have to just check how well the size fit, so whether I need to have some boning just to make it lay nicely. Another thing is what I need is the waist tape, and for that I've taken this ribbon that I can use to mark the position of the waist, and it's right about here. So now if I pin this in place, I know where to put the waist tape. I like the sleeve puffs, they turn out really nice. But yeah, this is progressing really nicely and I can't wait to wear this.
So, I finally decided that boning was a good idea. I decided to use all the leftover boning from all projects and use cable ties for the rest of the boning channels. I made the boning channels of the same chambray I've used already so many times. I sewed the boning channels on by hand. Now that the bones are all securely in place, I can attach the waist tape. Now there are only small finishes to make. I'll add the dress shields, and all the hooks and eyes. There are 3 hooks and eyes that secure the bodice to the skirt, 1 at the center back and 2 at the sides. Although this dress and skirt combination is already wearable, it is not the finished morning dress. For that, I need some very important accessories. Plus, I did mention a cape at some point. Thank you so much for watching and see you soon. Bye!